Next up is our CEO sponsor segment from Entergy. I want to welcome to the stage Sarah Cott from The Hill, as well as Entergy Chair and CEO Drew Marsh. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Julia, and welcome, Drew.
Thank you.
We're here in New Orleans, and we know that Entergy services the South Gulf region. Could you share a little bit about the unique position of this region?
Absolutely. And well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for being here on the sideline of the Edison Electric Institute conference. It's exciting to be part of all of this, and there's a good room of folks here that are participating. So here in the Gulf South area, in Louisiana in particular, who's had Commissioner Scametta on, there is a lot going on. We have a lot of advantages, and they really span the game. It's kind of a long list, but I'm going to go through it. It starts with the fact that we are along the Gulf Coast. We have the Mississippi River. We have a lot of access to international markets, and so that gives our customers an opportunity to really enter into the world. We have supportive communities. Domestically, we have a lot of capacity in terms of highways and railways and other things to move our customers' products around the country. We have very supportive communities. They are still looking to make these large investments. As Commissioner Spinner was just talking about the Hyundai investment, the Meta investments, and there's others out there as well. And those are also building on a very large industrial infrastructure. For years people have been talking about hydrogen hubs. Well, we have a hydrogen hub already. There are folks that are doing hydrogen, creating hydrogen, consuming hydrogen, transporting, storing hydrogen, all on the Gulf Coast. There's pipelines that go from here in New Orleans all the way to the Houston area, which is our service territory along the Gulf Coast. So we have abundant infrastructure, and all of that leads to low energy prices, of which we're part of, and we were just discussing. We have some of the lowest electric rates in the country, but the overall energy costs are really low. And that means that we can compete very effectively in the global economy. And so people come to the United States to look at the largest market in the world, and then they look at the Gulf South for all of those advantages, and they decide to locate here. That's been driving our growth for quite a bit. Over the last several years, really since the end of the Great Recession, our industrial sales at Entergy have been growing over 5% compounded annually. And that's accelerating in the current environment. And part of that is all those advantages, and then you layer on some of the things that Commissioner Scametta was talking about, like the Meta investment. And our growth is actually really accelerating right now along the Gulf Coast.
So obviously resilience is a key part of what you're doing. And as you mentioned before, discussed, energy usage is growing, and severe weather remains a key portion or a key issue for you. How is Entergy ensuring a resilient grid for communities it serves?
Well, the Commissioner was talking about, we are making a lot of investments. And I'll start with just the fact that, obviously, as he said, we have been experiencing storms for a long time. We are going to experience storms going forward. So we have continued to evolve the standards that we have for investment. And that includes, going back to Katrina days, which the 20th anniversary is coming up. We changed our standards to be more resilient after that storm. And that's because, the original standards were built for a different day and age. Those were the days of the number 2 pencil and chalkboards, and go outside and play, and didn't have to need a computer for work. Right? All those days are gone, and the grid was built to a lot of those expectations. Now, as Commissioner said, the expectations are different, and so making sure that our grid is resilient and reliable is really, really important. And he mentioned in Louisiana, we have a nearly $2 billion authorization from the Louisiana Commission to build resilience. That also includes New Orleans and Texas have authorizations now as well, so that as a company we have well over $2 billion of authorization to improve resilience going forward. And then we also have all of the new infrastructure that we're putting in place. All the growth that we talked about, that is driving new generation needs, new transmission needs, and we are using that opportunity to drive resilience as well, not just in the materials and the designs that we're putting up, but where those investments are going. So we are effectively looping the west bank of the Mississippi River with our investments. We have proposals actually in front of the commission now in Louisiana and in Texas to basically almost loop the transmission grid west towards the north side of Houston. And that is further away from the coast and built at more modern standards, and that's going to provide quite a bit of resilience for our grid. Not to mention create a lot of capacity for growth. So those are examples of things that we're doing. There's quite a bit that has happened over the last 20 years, but much, much more to come.
So with resilience and being a core priority, how does sustainability and customer affordability fit into the picture?
Well, our Entergy, and as I'm sure at most companies, the customers come first. And so thinking about what it means for our customers from a reliability standpoint that we were just talking about, but also the sustainability and the cost effectiveness, the affordability elements of it. Those are all going to be top of mind. And so we have a couple different things that we're thinking about when it comes to just a general service. We have an ongoing continuous improvement program that drives costs lower every day. And so we've been managing our costs to a constant O&M level for about the last 6 or 7 years, despite all the inflation that we've had through COVID and everything else, and the growth that we've had in our sales and our business and additional assets and infrastructure that we put in place. Our overall O&M costs have been basically flat. That has taken a lot of work from our teams, a lot of outstanding work to make sure that we don't sacrifice anything else while we're managing our costs more efficiently. And then the second thing I will say about cost management, particularly when it comes to resilience, is expanding the way that we think about costs overall. And that is, historically, we thought about how do we think about the value of resilience for our customers simply in the cost of the replacement of the infrastructure that's damaged. And so if you're thinking about it that way, it's not very cost effective to go replace a whole bunch of stuff because it doesn't cost that much to put up a new pole. If you're going and replacing a whole bunch of poles, you replace 100 poles, you might have only needed to replace 2 in the next 10 or 20 years. But when you add in the cost to the communities, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, the effect of our society and its requirements around electricity, the cost of not having electricity have gone way, way up over the past 30, 40 years because of continued electrification. Nowadays, it's very expensive to have an outage. Before it wasn't expensive at all. But when you factor in the cost of today, and it's the lost work, the lost economic activity, the cost of spoilers, the cost of travel if you have to go out of town to avoid the storm and be out of town for a week, and all those extra costs that are associated with the storm in an economic sense, well, those dwarf the cost of just replacing the infrastructure and making it more resilient. And so expanding that conversation and the commission has been a big part of that as well, as the city council in New Orleans and the commission in Texas. That has been a big part of changing the narrative and changing the conversation around how do we make sure that this resilience work is cost effective.
That's great, thank you. So for our last question, let's think a little bit about what's next. So local, state, and federal level, what do you see on the local, state, and federal level to support investment in the grid? And where do you see obstacles and opportunities?
Well, we see a lot of continued growth.
Okay.
And that is probably the first place where that's going to get the support for investment in the grid is from all the growth that we're anticipating. As I said, we've had industrial sales growth around 5%. Right now, over the next few years, in our outlook period, we're looking at 12 to 13% industrial sales growth. So a real step change in the growth expectation, and all of that investment, we are working hard to make sure that those customers help support the incremental costs of not just their effects on the grid, but all these other things that we have going on, increasing the transmission infrastructure, increasing the reliability and resilience of our grid to really fortify our grid. We want these customers to pick that part of it up. And I think that the next piece about it is making sure that we all work together. We call it around Entergy, we call it stakeholder engagement, but that is getting all of the parties to the table to talk about what we are going to do going forward. And that includes, the commission, of course, but includes the governor of Louisiana and other jurisdictions. The governor of Louisiana will be here later today. It also includes community leaders. It includes our customers. It includes vendors who are offering goods and services locally. Engaging all of these groups in the conversation to make sure everybody understands what we're collectively trying to accomplish and what their role and what their opportunity is in that going forward. And that's proven to be very, very powerful. It's gotten a lot of people organized and aligned, and we're getting, all of our communities and our leaders are getting into this conversation, and we're very excited about where it's headed.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much today, Drew, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to Thank you to Entergy for sponsoring today's show.